Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Mistress of the Damned. I am your Mistress Katrina. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Glad to see you here. This is where I'm reading through the enormous library of books you see behind me, adding new books as the whimsy grabs me, hoarding them like the book dragon in woman's clothing that I apparently am. After spending the last 2 weeks in the depressing dumpster fires of fascism and socialism and what happens when authoritarianism in general is taken too far by governments, we turn this week to something considerably more inspiring, the autobiography of Walter E. Williams. It is called Up From the Projects, an autobiography. I have long been a huge admirer of Dr. Williams and his defense of free market capitalism, which spanned his entire adult life, from the time he stepped foot in his first economics class until his death on December 2nd, 2020. Dr. Williams was born March 31st in 1936 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and was raised by a single mother. His father left not too long after his younger sister was born, and his mother basically raised them on her own. Help from family, but by and large it was the three of them. His mother stressed the importance of education while he was growing up, and very early on he had a library card and would make weekly trips to the public library, kind of adding to his own education on top of the public schooling education that he received. Dr. Williams frequently credits a lot of what molded him as being a student during a time before it was popular to like black people, meaning that he got honest feedback from teachers and bosses rather than the kid gloves frequently used academically with today's generation. And he used multiple examples from his own 50 plus years of teaching to demonstrate how long affirmative action has been destroying intellect among the black communities. He was a huge critic of affirmative action. He thought it was a horrible thing. He thought that it destroyed meritocracy, and along with that meritocracy, destroyed the minds of a generation. Dr. Williams met his wife shortly before he was drafted into the U.S. Army, where he used his incredibly sharp wit to fight against segregation, and there was quite a bit of segregation. He was drafted in 1959, and spent the first year of his active duty in Georgia. So that should give you some idea of the level of racism that he had to deal with, even on base where theoretically everything was integrated, but in reality, if you were black, you were given kind of the shit jobs, right? I mean, you were given whatever crap job they had that they didn't want to give to the white soldiers. And he called them out on that. And he did it in such a way that he couldn't get in trouble for having called it out. And it was genuinely delightful to read through some of his anecdotes from his time in the Army. I don't think I've laughed that hard, well, in at least 2 weeks, since I just spent 2 weeks reading about, Hitler and Mao Zedong, which are not cheery people to be reading about. So Dr. Williams was a massive step up from that direction. The one time he did receive a UCMJ violation, a Uniform Code of Military Justice, he was able to conclusively prove that it was a setup, that the captain basically had it out for him. He intended to file countercharges against the captain, but was convinced to accept a leave, which he regrets because when he got back, they shipped him off to Korea for the remainder of his 2-year tour. He was drafted, so he only had to serve 2 years, and then 2 years in the reserves, and then 2 years in active reserves. When his active enlistment ended, he enlisted in the reserves in Los Angeles so that he could start his education at Los Angeles College. And at that time, he and his wife, Connie, moved out west and started his academic career was there. After, of course, he graduated, he moved back to the East Coast. By happy accident, he ended up taking an economics course. He was initially going to go into sociology programs, but he decided to take an economics course, just one, and he nearly failed it. And he was going to just drop economics entirely, but his wife Connie convinced him to take another class, and the rest was history. Throughout the book, you can hear his wisdom, which permeated his nationally syndicated column that he wrote for 40 years. It's not always a comfortable book to read, and it should not be. He grew up in the 1940s and 1950s, and while racism was not as deeply ingrained in the North, it was there. And Dr. Williams recounts several incidents that just hurt to read about, because it's a dark chapter in our country as a whole. But he's incredibly honest with his writing. Where he thinks that racism may have been a factor, he says so. and where he thinks the other party was just an asshole, he says that too. And that honesty lends credence to his writing. He was an outspoken opponent of minimum wage laws, affirmative action, and socialism, using the economics that he learned and received a doctorate in which he devoted his life to proving unequivocally that all three were just absolutely terrible ideas, and was able to prove that conclusively, that they caused more harm to the communities they were meant to help. In return, he was vilified by the liberals, to whom these ideas were cherished ideals. That calling somebody an Uncle Tom, yeah, that happened to him way back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, because they couldn't disprove his point. Mathematically, economically, he was able to prove conclusively they were wrong, and since they couldn't disprove his logic, they attacked him personally. All criticism was directed at him personally, and he weathered it with amazing grace and dignity. He just let it roll off them. He just used his column to repeat his point for future generations to learn from. If you are unfamiliar with his writing, I do encourage you to visit his website. The link will be included in the description below. This is where his writing is archived up to his death. They have from, I believe, at least 2000 up to present. They did have a link to his website at the university, I think it was George Mason University, where he was teaching, that supposedly had the archives from like the first 20 years of his writing. Unfortunately, that link was broken when I clicked on it. I don't know if they're going to get around to fixing that. He published several books, the early works of which are literal collector's items. They sell for several $100s used on Amazon. There have been no reprints, so there's no getting those back. I mean, as soon as I have a spare $700 to buy some of these books, I fully intend to. I just don't have that money right now. I might if I quit buying other books for like $20 a pop, but for now, I just has to go on my wish list, and I'll have to buy them later. And that's it for this week. It's not a very long book, so it's not a very long review. I think it's like 140 pages, 143 pages. Not a long book to encompass 84 years of living, but he didn't need a lot of words to tell his story. He had 40 years of writing experience behind him, so he knew how to get to the point without dragging it out. Entertaining to the nth degree. Like I said, it's just it was so much fun to read through and listen to some of his anecdotes from the Army. If you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so YouTube actually notifies you when I post a new video. Go ahead and share it, please. I'd love for you guys to share what you like. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.